All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the life of one of history's most recognizable figures, Mahatma Gandhi. I mean, his face is everywhere, on money, on streets all over the world. But the man himself? Well, he was far more complex and honestly, way more controversial than the myth we all know. Albert Einstein said that about him, basically that he was legendary. And for millions, that's exactly what Gandhi is, the ultimate symbol of peace. In India, he's so revered, he's often just called Bapu, which means father of the nation. But the big question is, was he a saint, or was the reality a whole lot messier? In this explainer, we're going to look right past the icon to get to the man, the whole man, his incredible triumphs, and yeah, his deeply unsettling flaws. Now, there is absolutely no doubt his influence was massive, just huge. His philosophy of nonviolent resistance became the playbook for giants like Martin Luther King Jr. and Nelson Mandela. But here's the twist. The very origins of his methods weren't born in India. They were actually forged decades earlier in the fires of colonial South Africa. So this is where it gets really interesting. How did he come up with his signature philosophy? Well, it all started back in 1883 when he was a young lawyer who moved to South Africa and came face to face with some of the most intense racial discrimination you can imagine. So to fight back, he needed a new weapon, and he developed one. He called it satyagraha. Now, he made it super clear. This was not passive resistance. He saw that as a tool for the weak. No, satyagraha, he said, was the force which is born of truth and love, a powerful, active way to change the hearts and minds of your opponents, not just to outlast them. And he put this theory into practice right away. Check this out. In 1913, a court basically nullified all non-Christian Indian marriages. So his wife, Kasturba, led women to protest and get arrested. That single act lit a spark that started a massive movement. Thousands of miners went on strike, and then Gandhi himself led a great march of over 2,000 people. And you know what? The pressure worked. The government completely caved and they repealed the laws. It was a huge, huge victory. Okay, but this is exactly where the simple story starts to fall apart. Because while Gandhi was fighting for Indian rights, the historical record, well, it reveals a deeply troubling side to his activism in South Africa. Here's the really uncomfortable truth. His fight for justice was not for everyone, not even close. He actively campaigned to keep Indians separate from Black Africans. He complained about using the same entrances as, and I'm quoting his words here, Kafirs, which is a deeply offensive slur. He argued for Indian rights by actually upholding the very same racial hierarchy that was oppressing Black South Africans. His personal life was just as complicated. Later in life, he conducted these really controversial spiritual experiments to test his vow of celibacy, or brahmacharya. And this involved sleeping naked next to young women, including, and this is true, his own grandnieces. Now, he saw it as a test of his self-control, but many people, both then and now, have condemned these actions, and they raise some really serious questions about his judgment and the kind of power he had over his followers. Okay, let's shift gears and head back to India, because despite his global status as a leader of the independence movement, Gandhi's final years were just completely overshadowed by what he considered his greatest failure, both politically and morally, the partition of India. He fought so passionately to keep India united. His entire vision was of a single secular nation where Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, everyone could live together in peace. He was completely 100% against dividing the country up along religious lines. But he failed. In 1947, British India was partitioned, and the result was chaos on a scale that is almost impossible to imagine. As these new borders were literally being drawn on a map, a staggering 14 million people were forced out of their homes. It created one of the largest and most brutal refugee crises in all of human history. And the human cost was just staggering. Communities that had lived side by side for centuries were just torn apart. Horrific violence erupted everywhere. Hindus, Muslims, and Sikhs began slaughtering each other in these brutal massacres. Historians figure that as many as 2 million people were killed. For Gandhi, the man who preached nonviolence his entire life, it was a devastating moral defeat. In the middle of all this horror, Gandhi made his final stand. In January of 1948, he began a fast to try and shame all sides into stopping the killing. He also pushed the new Indian government to pay the money it owed to the new country of Pakistan, an act of fairness that absolutely enraged Hindu extremists. Just a few days after he ended that fast, he was assassinated by a Hindu nationalist who believed Gandhi had betrayed his own people. Now, you'd think the story might end there, but after his death, Gandhi's core ideas on nonviolent struggle, they didn't just survive. They found this powerful new life thousands of miles away, and they would go on to fundamentally change the course of American history. And you can actually trace a direct line. In 1935, the theologian Howard Thurman met with Gandhi, and Gandhi told him, get this, it may be through the Negroes that the unadulterated message of nonviolence will be delivered to the world. Thurman later became a mentor to a young Martin Luther King Jr., and it was he who pushed King to make satyagraha the strategic and moral heart of the civil rights movement. Back in India, though, his legacy is a total battleground. His vision of a secular, multi-faith country is in direct conflict with the very powerful Hindu nationalist movement, the exact same ideology that inspired his killer. And this is maybe the biggest irony of all. Gandhi often used Hindu stories, like the story of Lord Ram, to bring people together. He even popularized a song that said the Hindu god Ishwara and the Muslim god Allah were one and the same. Today, the very Hindu nationalist movement connected to his assassin claims his legacy, while its followers use the chant Hail Lord Ram as a weapon against Muslims. So, where does all of this leave us? We're looking at a man who championed nonviolence but held racist views, a freedom fighter who in the end failed to stop the bloody division of his own country. It's a lot to hold at once. So how do we make sense of it all? How do you reconcile these truths? Well, maybe we don't have to choose. Maybe acknowledging the profound contradictions in his life doesn't diminish his triumphs. It just makes them more human. Perhaps the only way to truly understand the man they called Mahatma, the great soul, is to accept that he was all of these things, all at once.